I think one of the biggest unknowns still to this moment about the upcoming Nothing Phone 1 has got to be the dual camera array and what kind of performance that is actually going to get you. Well, as of this morning, we have a whole lot more information than we did before, because there is a new post on Nothing's website in their blog section detailing not just what their camera is going to be doing, but in fact giving us some camera samples that we can look at and potentially analyze to kind of get an idea of what kind of photography performance we're going to be getting. So let's kind of read here what we've got, because it gives us kind of a window into what their philosophy is regarding their cameras. Camera quality is everything, naturally. Unlike what some brands would have you believe, quality does not mean more cameras. We've seen this a lot over the last few years, more and more and more cameras being slapped onto the back of a device, and Nothing is saying that's not what they're going to be doing. They don't want to do that. They stack cameras, think more is more, but more just means more cameras of lower quality. Not necessarily the case, obviously. Some have many cameras of good quality, but I see what they're saying. For an illusion of innovation, more LiDAR sensors you'd never use, more for the sake of it, just to take more from you. Now that I kind of do agree with. They can put more stuff into a phone that you're probably not going to use, but it allows them to charge more for the device. It costs more to make it, but they can then charge more. Their margin can potentially increase as it is a premium product. They can target premium buyers. I kind of get what they're coming from there as well. The Phone 1 has just 2 cameras, 2 superb ones, not 4 mediocre ones. It starts with our sensor, and we chose the best. Our main camera uses the flagship 50 megapixel IMX766 to give you exceptional images every time. That means extraordinary detail in any light with the 1.88 aperture and a 1/1.56 inch sensor size. So we know a lot about this sensor, the IMX766. It's in a lot of phones. There's a list there of phones that have this exact same sensor in it. Some have good camera performance. Most of them are kind of mediocre. Some are better than others. Software has a lot to do with this. It is worth pointing out that this does have 1 micrometer pixels, but being that it is a 50 megapixel sensor, I'm quite sure they're going to be pixel binning down, maybe 12.5 megapixels, which would effectively give you 4 micrometer pixels, which is going to help out quite a bit. And of course, the 1/1.56 inch sensor size is relatively large. Obviously, we've seen sensors that are significantly large, but this is not a small sensor by any stretch of the imagination. They talk about 10-bit color being in the videos, so your videos are going to have much more true to life colors, OIS and EIS, which is great for stabilization, 114 degree field of view, and here's what we have in terms of photo samples. Let's dig into these. All right, we have a very up-close photo of the face of a cat, and the first thing that you're probably going to notice here is the focus fall off. The bokeh is quite natural. I don't know if this is portrait mode. This might just be natural bokeh. If it is portrait mode, it's doing a really good job, both by being so close, but also the nature of how that focus is falling off. We're going to assume that this is in fact not portrait mode though, but it's got really good detail, right? The fur is extremely detailed, although we are very, very close. So you would hope that that would be the case. This next one is a photo of sort of a city landscape, the buildings and so forth. And this does look quite good, but this is in very, very good lighting. You really can't get much better lighting than this, because not only is it daylight, it's not super sunny. You've got overcast clouds there, which kind of cuts down on that light a little bit. This is pretty much optimal photographic scenario for this thing, but it does a good job. Let's zoom in here, and you will see in some of these shadows here, we have some grain, right? There's some graininess here on the fringes, on the edges of the photo, and as well as in the shadows. Detail is okay on these bricks. It's nothing mind-bogglingly good. It's okay. Of course, in the center of the sensor, it is a bit better. The detail, again, though, in the middle is not world-beating. It's not unbelievable, but it's definitely more than passable. And unless you're pixel peeping like this, it's not a lot of stuff that you're really going to see. If we zoom back out, it looks fine. I like this one quite a bit. I really like the overall composition and look of this photos. I like the colors. You kind of have like a nice haziness down here that's really nice. And of course, this looks as though the sun is now beginning to have shadows being cast. This is probably taken later in the day. Let's punch in though and look at where we might find some weakness here in these shadows. Not a lot of detail preserved here, but that's actually okay for the composition of the shot as far as I'm concerned, because it is in shadow. I don't really like seeing a photo where the shadows are brought way up to where you can't really tell that it's a shadow anymore. So I think in regard to that, that does a pretty good job. The text here is nice and easy to read. Detail is pretty solid. I think this picture's holding up maybe better than the other one did. Some of these details here of this tree are pretty mushy, pretty non-existent. They're not really all that great. Moving up here to the better lit areas, it's relatively crisp. But again, it's not incredible, right? We're not looking at a photo taken by some incredibly like top class sensor. We just aren't. This is an IMX766. This thing is not going to be on par with something like the Pixel or something like a Samsung flagship device. It just doesn't have the hardware to do it. And I think you're kind of seeing that borne out here. Going to the next picture, this is another really nice shot. I'm not sure if clouds are meant to be there or not. Maybe it's just one continuous sort of cloud cover. Let's look at the text here. Relatively legible. Looks pretty good from a pretty good distance, right? You can jump in and that looks pretty solid. I haven't really talked much about the colors, mostly because I don't really know what this looked like in reality. But this blue is quite punchy. You've got sort of this burnt orange that looks pretty good. Again, I don't know what it looked like in reality, but there's another tone of red. I'm assuming that these colors, I would guess, are accurate, if not tuned up just a little bit. Have we punched up the saturation on these images just a hair? That is possible, but it's definitely nothing wild like what Samsung used to do. This is a pretty cool shot here too. This looks like something that I would have taken. And if we jump in here to some of these details, this looks pretty good. And it's a lot closer, right? So that helps with some of the graininess, but we are still seeing graininess in the shadows. Again, if we're not pixel peeping though, totally serviceable image. I like this picture a lot because it has a dog in it, but I think this is a much tougher shot than you may first realize. I have a dog with some white fur. Actually, you just saw her interrupting the beginning of the video. She has some white fur on her chest and on her face, and sometimes my phone cameras will accidentally sort of try to meter off of the wrong thing, and her white fur will just blow completely out. So if we zoom in here, is that happening? Not really. I think that it's done an okay job. It's very, very white, and that happens. You start getting areas that are blown out and you lose all detail. That's happened here. You can see no fur there, no individual hairs. This is kind of more maybe motion blurry, maybe. And then you do have a little bit of grain here on the edges. But overall, for this dog, maybe it was laying still. It did a pretty good job overall on this one. This is a good test though. So this is kind of getting into a lower light scenario. It's not nighttime, but it's definitely darker. Let's zoom in down here. And this is what you would expect. It's pretty grainy. You don't have great detail, but it's in low light and it's at a pretty good distance. So overall, the total composition of the shot, I like it. I think the colors are being maintained. A lot of the times in lower light, your colors kind of get crushed, where you still have some pink in the clouds there, some purple, some cyan on the wall here from these lights. You have the purple on the merry-go-round here. Is that what that's called? I think that's right. This is a fairly impressive shot. And then last but not least, here's another shot in a train station of some sort. Baker Street. Let's zoom in and see if we can read any of this text. That seems to be kind of impossible to read. Okay detail, when you zoom in, we're zooming in pretty far. It pretty much falls in line with what we've seen on these prior images. So overall, I'm not blown away by what I'm seeing, but I think that this is absolutely more than serviceable. I would love to know more about their other camera. To my knowledge, all they've talked about here is their primary sensor. Our main camera uses da-da-da-da-da-da. I don't know if any of these were taken by anything but the main sensor. I'm assuming these were all the main sensor. We still don't know what the wide angle is, what we're assuming it is, the auxiliary camera. We don't know much about how it's going to work and what it's all about. But in terms of the photos we have now seen, I think it looks more than serviceable, but I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments down below. What details maybe did you see that I did not see? I will drop a link to this in the description so that you can go check them out on your own. There will be an event in 4 short days where we're going to be getting a whole bunch more information about the Nothing Phone 1, which of course, sadly, will not be coming directly to North America because we don't get any fun phones. We don't get the Xiaomi Mi 12S Ultra. We don't get the Aquos R7 with the same sensor as the 12S Ultra. We don't get the Nothing Phone. It's terrible. Why can't we only get Samsung phones? That's all we get over here anymore. I want the fun phones. I want the weird phones, but I digress. Guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.